You could try to play, but you're never gonna beat me. Look the other way, what I'm doing ain't easy.
Alrighty guys, welcome to what is going to be one of the first animal videos or pet videos on my channel that I'm going to start doing here and there in addition to all the video game content. Today is and was originally supposed to be a review on FearNotTarantulas, as well as an unboxing and rehousing of the tarantulas I got from them, as well as the blue fang death beetles. However, now the video is more or less going to be a rehousing of the tarantulas and just a slight review on FearNotTarantulas, not the blue fang death beetles. The reason being is I had already started to record this video, and unfortunately my microphone was not working. So in the process of doing that, we lost, I had already unboxed everybody. But I will continue to go over what I got here. And these are the blue fang death beetles that in the previous recording I had actually already housed. They are a little darker in color currently due to their higher humidity they were exposed to during shipping, but they will lighten up soon. The reason they are currently on both sand and soil is these guys are actually primarily wild caught in the hobby. Very few of them are actually captive bred. And my plan was to be one of the few people that are captive breeding them, as somebody on the arachnid boards discovered how to properly get these guys to pupate. So I will be trying to breed these guys. One of them looks like it's possibly a male, otherwise all of them are females. In which case I will just have to wait until November when I go to the Raleigh, North Carolina Repticon Expo. Again, I had went to the one earlier at the start of August to see about procuring a male specifically in person, where I can check the sex on it myself on the antennas. Until then, these guys will just have to, I guess, have their own little girls' party in there. In the meantime, though, we're going to go ahead and get into going over the tarantulas. Alrighty guys, so let's start off by reintroducing you guys to FearNotTarantula for those who don't know about them. They are a tarantula store in Virginia Beach. Fantastic customer service. They ship, I don't know about worldwide, but I know they ship to within the US. And they have fantastic customer service, fantastic specimens. I've gotten several tarantulas from them now in addition to all of these. And yeah, so if you guys are in the market for a tarantula, they also have some scorpions. I got the blue fang death beetles from them. Definitely give them a call. Tanya is fantastic to work with. Also, which again, this is not a sponsored video by any means. I just gonna give props where props is due. This enclosure, of course, is in many of my enclosures that I prefer to use are tarantula cribs enclosures. Fantastic USA local brand. They're privately owned, as far as I know. It's just the husband and wife partnership there that's making all of these. Also shout out to a couple other YouTube channels. If you guys like tarantulas and arachnids, definitely go ahead and watch some videos from the Tarantula Collective. Richard over there is very knowledgeable and actually helped me out a lot with some of the information that I was not aware of. Aquarimax Pets is fantastic for information on isopods and blue fang death beetles, as well as some other fish. and shrimp species. Also, Tarantula Cat and Tarantula Haven are also both fantastic channels, as well as Tom's Big Spiders and Dark Den. As well as Brian Barczyk is also great for if you're into reptiles. He's been branching out a bit with his videos lately, but he's mostly done reptiles as far as I have followed him. But with his Reptarium, I know he's been branching into some other arachnids and mammals. If you guys are interested in getting your own tarantula cribs enclosures for any of your own arachnids, I know Richard over at the Tarantula Collective has a list of reputable suppliers for tarantulas and vendors for tarantulas and other arachnids, as well as supplies. And on that list he also has discount codes for the ones that he has partnerships or has gotten codes from, of which he has a 10% off code for tarantula cribs for his community members on there. So again, shout out to Richard. I used his code when I purchased these, and I've been following him for a while. Also, if you are in the market for the tarantulas and want to go to FearNotTarantulas, they currently have a sale with a promo code going on until the end of September, which I will put that promo code down in the description box for you guys. I believe it expires September 30th, and that'll get you 10% off. So with that said, let's go ahead and see who we got here. We have a Poeciliotharia, I can never pronounce these guys right, Metallica, also commonly referred to as the Goody Ornamental Sapphire, which this one is currently hiding in here. I believe it's between an inch and an inch and a half is what they marked it as. This one here is a Grammostola pulchripes, also commonly referred to as the Chaco Golden Knee, which this one is a juvenile, and you can kind of see it there. He was trying to walk about before. I should be able to see him there. Then we have a Formictopus auratus. I butchered that name. Also known as the Cuban bronze tarantula. And this one I believe is half an inch to an inch is the size for them. This one is a Fufius SP Gold Digger, which this one is actually, if I'm not mistaken, not a tarantula but a true spider. It is just a longer lived species, and it is a trapdoor spider. So probably won't see this guy a lot, but they're very beautiful. This one, but speaking of beautiful, these guys are gorgeous, the Goody Ornamental Sapphires, and this was actually one of my dream species. This one here is a Brachypelma smithi, or Brachypelma smithi. Not to be confused with the Hamori, or there's another one I cannot remember off the top of my head, but they resemble greatly the Mexican flame legs. However, this one is a Mexican red leg. The Hamori is the normal Mexican red leg, and the smithi is the giant Mexican red leg, which, I remember correctly, there's actually a new name that these guys are called. It is that's actually the synonym for smithi, but still they're commonly referred to as smithi. But that reclassification happened a while ago. Here we have a Acanthosauria geniculata, which is the giant white knee. This guy was one of the freebies that I had gotten from them. Here we have a Lasiodora klugi, also commonly referred to as the Pi scarlet bird eater. It's a fairly rare bird eater species in the hobby. I wouldn't necessarily say rare as much as it is just less common to find. So definitely on the rarer side, but a beautiful species nonetheless. In fact, that entire genus is very beautiful and large growing. They also grow fairly quickly, if I'm not mistaken, the entire genus does. This one here is a Cyropagopus. I can never pronounce that one right either. Lividus, also commonly referred to as the blue cobalt or cobalt blue tarantula, and sometimes referred to as the pet hole, as you will not see them often, and also as the menace when you try to clean them or clean out their enclosures or anything. However, I have heard that is not necessarily the case if you give them the proper environment, the proper housing, everything, proper substrate depth, and you don't mess with them other than when you absolutely have to, which this guy will not be messed with unless he's being fed or he is needing to be rehoused as he is today, and not until he absolutely has to be moved again. This one here is an Avicularia metallica, also known as the metallic pink-toe tarantula, which I believe this one is actually a locale of the Avicularia, or morph, I guess would be the term for it. I know this one is not an officially recognized species of Avicularia. Then here we have another beautiful tarantula here. This one's a dwarf species, which of course they labeled it as being very small, so I knew. This one is the Hapalopus sp. Columbia, which is also commonly referred to as the pumpkin patch tarantula. And this one is the Groot, meaning large specimen. I believe the small specimen, if I remember correctly, or the small locality or I guess version of them is the Klein, I believe is what it's pronounced. Which sounds German to me. I believe it's German. Do not quote me on that. And then here we actually have two of the same. These are Heterothelii gavinosus, which are the Brazilian blue dwarf tarantulas, which are very tiny. Actually, you can see one of them there at the bottom. And these guys only get to be about 2 inches. Which these guys are a communal species, one of the few communal tarantula species, so these guys will be housed together. And I know they definitely do better when housed together, starting as slings, especially when you end up with a mature female in the group. And the same goes for the Goody ornamental sapphires. They are also a communal species. In fact, FearNotTarantulas just posted a picture recently on their Facebook page and their Instagram with theirs and their communal setup. So I believe this guy, we're going to go ahead and move him into what would be his juvenile enclosure, even though he should be a little under the usual size. Usually you don't move them until they're about 2 inches or so is when you want to move them into their juvenile. But being as they are an old world species and fast, and I don't want to have to bother him him or her as more than absolutely necessary, we are going to go ahead and do them in the into a medium tarantula cribs treehouse enclosure, which this should last them a fair bit before they get moved into the large and or skip that and go right into a fairly big Exoterra. We're going to go ahead and set this up with the substrate first, of which I am going to be using the Biodude Terra Arania. Again, none of these YouTube channels or retailers sponsor this video in any way. Just all fantastic products and reputable suppliers and vendors that I went with and that have great reputations. The Biodude substrate, I will say though, is however probably one of the best substrates for arachnids, and I know he has stated in his videos that that Richard over at the Tarantula Collective has been working on putting a lot of his newer acquisitions, and as he rehouses his tarantulas, moving them onto the substrate as well. And I know these guys don't need a whole lot of substrate, as they tend to stay up higher as they get older and stay on the ground a lot less. but we are going to be giving the Metallica just a little bit, as I plan to make this a bioactive, as I also plan to do with the cobalt blue, and actually all of them as they mature and are in a habitat that can facilitate a successful bioactive, which I have been culturing dwarf white isopods for that purpose, as well as I've been culturing springtails for a long time now, from back when I used to keep some dart frogs, and I ended up, when they passed away, I never got back into that, but I did keep my cultures going, just in case I ever needed them, as they were very low maintenance to do. Actually, across the table over here, there's a catch cup, which is very smart to have over here, as we will need that. I am willing to bet I have these dishes here, which these dishes here are actually found on Thingiverse. These are I will see if I can find it again and put it in the description. This was a tarantula water dish 3D model file I found on Thingiverse.com that I 3D printed myself. I actually did make slight adjustments to it, and as far as depth goes, the default version was very narrow and shallow and wasn't holding the water the best. So these I actually 3D printed myself, a whole bunch of them, different sizes. Most of these are medium because these are for mostly slings and juveniles. And I actually lined these with 100% silicone, also called aquarium silicone, which is safe. And I did that as that will help prevent any water leakage or anything from these, as I did not do any sanding, as they're already smooth. I didn't do any filling or coating with epoxy or vapor smoothing, none of that on any of these parts. These are just plain white and clear PLA, as I didn't want to use anything potentially harmful to tarantulas or anything else for that matter on anything being used for animals. So these are just lined with 100% silicone and left to set for about 2 days before I put them in the bag there. And that's so that these hold the water. And then over here I was planning to put in challah wood for this guy to help anchor the plant, which I have a trimming of pothos out of one of my freshwater aquariums that I had hanging on it, because my pothos in my Jackson's chameleon enclosure is currently on the bare side, as most of what is currently in my aquariums did originate from that and hasn't fully grown back yet. So this is a trimming from a larger piece from in there. So let's go ahead and plant this one in here. And this will be the start of the bioactive. I will eventually add more plants in here as they get bigger and require a larger enclosure. This pothos is not going to want to cooperate though. Also, I'm not too sure how well it's going to do here with the depth and everything. I also already mixed this Biodude substrate with some of his Bioshot in there for the beneficial bacteria and microbes. But my plan was, I'm definitely putting cork bark in here, which I don't know how well it's going to do with how I cut it now. I might need to trim that. I should probably put this in first. Gonna end up having to break that down more. We'll actually use this piece, I guess, then. I mismeasured it there a bit, and we'll actually do this here in this corner like so. On the right, this is actually how I set up some of my gecko enclosures. Like my morning geckos, for example, are set up similar as are my crested geckos. I use the cork bark to actually anchor the plant in the corner, keep it from getting uprooted or anything. Buried piece of the cork bark there, and I don't know if I'll really use this. Challah wood is also a little on the large side. Just give them a little more anchor points to web on in here for now. And I will be adding in here as well. Let's see, we got plant. I was planning to do a little moss for humidity, and I will probably add some fake foliage in here for added cover. I don't know how much would be prime for this species. I'm only going based off of what I have been recommended in primarily Tom's Big Spiders and Richard's Tarantula Collective care video that he did for a Tarantula Tuesday video. Which this one's also going to need a little more substrate around those plants there. Let's bring this back over here. And this is also the same substrate that I used on the blue fang death beetles for that corner for them to put their mealworms in. If I do in fact have a male in there. Otherwise that won't happen until I get a male. But just put that in there a bit, help anchor that in place. Maybe stick a bit of it. And this is live pillow moss that I am putting in here right now. I do have sphagnum moss I plan to put in as well. But we'll anchor a bit of this into the log here, and that should root itself over time. And then continue to kind of grow on it. Take some of these little clumps of it here and kind of stick that down in here like so. This will also help keep moisture around the pothos there without raising the humidity too high. That wasn't trying to do that yet. Over time this will kind of even itself out a bit. Probably put it in this corner back here. For the moss. I don't really think we need the challah wood in here for it. I don't think he's going to use it. I was thinking it would help to anchor the fake foliage until this pothos expands and grows out a bit, and then I can always replace that if needed, but I don't think that's going to work. So we will take that out for now and do that. We have some live moss. That moss will grow out a little bit in there as well, giving more cover. I do have some fake foliage over here, a scissor to help trim it. So we will trim off a little bit of this here. And just kind of, this was my primarily going to be used for the primarily was planning to be used for the slings. Just put like a piece of one of the leaves in there to help supply some cover, but we'll see how he does before we worry about editing this. I don't believe they need too much there in the way of that. It's got the cork bark, you should be able to hide in, and you can go behind it there. There is some space. And it's leaning against the side, so that works there. This is going to be a fun one trying to get this door on. Let me actually grab my tongs here and try to get some of this soil out of the slide for the door. There we go. We've got our moss in there. This cork bark over here, and we'll set this down over here on this side for now. Worst case scenario, that child will actually probably go into the enclosure with the fang death beetles to give them something to climb on a bit, in addition to what's already there. Okay, with that like that, I think we're good for the water dish and some misting. Actually, before we do that, we do want to give it some actual damp sphagnum moss on the one side in here. That will help with humidity as well. You can put just a little bit here along the bottom. There we go. Perfect. Now, personally, I would like to put more foliage in there. We'll probably try to add some later. Ideally, live foliage. Probably just gonna have to get another pothos, maybe a small fern, to put in there. But for now, we'll see how that does. Put the water dish right here for it. For some reason, I think these guys prefer the water dish on the ground. I had actually designed this water dish here myself and 3D printed it with the magnetic attachment here, which this is specifically for a Vecularia species, and I'll have this up on my Etsy store for those who are interested in it for theirs. I didn't see many similar to it on the market, and I actually made a similar version that's a little deeper, which was intended as for food, specifically for jumping spiders. For example, I have a picky regal jumping spider and a picky Phidippus audax that don't want to eat as often as they probably should. Of course, they're arachnids and they're going to eat when they want to or when they're ready for it. But they're confused flower beetles that one of them get, and the roaches end up scurrying around the enclosure, and it's a pain to keep track of them and make sure that they don't get away and pull them out when they're done eating, when they're not going to eat them. So the dish will help keep them in one place for them, especially since they're arboreal species. They should find the food a little easier that way. We'll just do a light mist on this here. Get a little bit of water in the dish here. And then we will set the mist over here, and we will lift this guy up here. I didn't account for how big this was going to be to use that container, so we will just have to open them up over the enclosure here. Probably should have grabbed a larger bin. And oh, actually, before we do that, in here I have my dwarf isopods, which I keep in the same substrate. I have just a few of them in here. Probably gonna only put a few, because even though the cobalt blue I believe is gonna have to go into a vial, for now I plan to put at least a few in there, I think. Worst case scenario will be small enough where they serve as food, but they should not harm him or anything. Let's get these guys here. There's about 3 or 4 in there for you guys to see them there. About one right here, another one right here. Very small isopods, not very calcium dependent, not very protein hungry, so they are great for keeping with arachnids and don't harm them. Definitely gonna have a mess here to clean up afterwards, but can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs. Do have a few more in here that will either make their way into this enclosure later, or they will go in with the cobalt blue, or anybody else that ends up needing it. I was also going to do bioactive for the Metallica, but I believe that one is not going to actually be using that larger tarantula cribs, the small tarantula cribs yet. I think that one's going to actually be ending up in a Sling enclosure, or a 50 dram vial, due to its size. That is one of my cats who wants into a room that she has been locked out of. Okay, let's go ahead and start opening up our Metallica here. can get you guys a good view here. Oh, also, we have springtails, which I did kind of flood this container. I collected these out of one of my cultures, these temperate springtails, and I intentionally flooded it a bit as it makes it easier to move them as they float. And I have these guys in just about every one of my enclosures I can put them in. Put just a little piece of this charcoal, even though there is some mixed in with the active charcoal and with the biodune substrate here. We're going to put just a few pieces of this charcoal in here, as the springtails will breed on that and lay their eggs on that. And I don't know if they will do that in the soil without it. Probably going to have to add more water to this in order to move them for the rest of them, but we'll go ahead and do this here. And I only have one of these guys, so it's not going to be a communal setup for them, though I do plan to put the Goody, or not the Goody, the Brazil blue dwarf tarantulas into there, or blue dwarf baboon tarantulas, excuse me, those into there. A communal enclosure with just the two of them for now. I may add more later, I don't know. It will depend on how things go. Which these guys can give a nasty bite, so I really don't want to get bit by it. Let's go ahead and open this up here and see if I can't zoom in for you guys. Trying to zoom in, but of course my phone here has other things it insists on showing. Let's go ahead and move this guy in. Can't seem to get my zoom to work, unfortunately. Actually don't want to put all of this in there, but we'll pull some of that out. These tongs are a little sharp, so I don't want to get too close to it with these. Let's switch to these ones here. Oh, hello, little guy. Fortunately, these guys don't have the urticating hairs because they're an old world species, so just got to be really wary of the fangs, and that's about it. That and the speed. Both are equally dangerous if you're not careful due to their fangs. But I'm just going to give this guy a little scoot. Up. Whoa. Don't need to get bit there. Don't have gloves on. Come on. And this is why we have a catch top over here. There we go. And if that reaction doesn't tell you how bad the bite can be and how I don't feel like getting bit, then nothing else will really describe to you other than somebody actually getting bitten and you seeing it. Beautiful tarantula. Definitely not one you want to get bit by, though. And not one that I ideally would like to be handling, just because of that risk. Same with the cobalt blue. You will never see me handling the cobalt blue because there's a high likelihood of getting bit. Oh, come on, buddy. And now I know why Thomas Expires has little holes in his catch cups. He uses his to kind of to poke and prod and get them in and out of the cup. I thought he did that for ventilation purposes, and so I didn't bother doing it. Okay, come on, buddy. Let's see if I can't get him to turn around here. Come on. Let's go. I should have gotten a shell or a cup. Okay, there we go. Right inside that time. That was the first escapee I've actually had where it didn't want to go directly into the enclosure. Usually that's not the case. And accidentally knocked the camera out of the way there. Hopefully you guys were able to see that. Let's lift them up. Let you guys get a better view here. He's right there in that corner. He or she. I believe it's too young to tell. It's currently sitting right there. So that cork bark should be perfect for it to hide in. And this enclosure will last it for a little while before it needs to be moved again. But he's back there in the corner behind that moss. So this enclosure will do nice for a while. So we'll go ahead and set the small flag shape. We're going to go ahead and put its label on first before we do anything else. Now that I've gotten some water on the labels, which this one I actually named, if I remember correctly, let's see, what was it that I named this one? This one I named Apollo, after the Greek god in relevance to the sapphires that would be worn when they went to when people would go to meet the oracle Delphine, I think it was, trying to commune specifically with Apollo. So that is why that one's name is Apollo. There we go. It's a little crooked, but that'll do. So let's go ahead and move Apollo over there and move this back here because we're probably going to need it. Which, while we're at it, these are the rest of the labels here. And I've actually named the Fang Death Beetles, as they can't be told apart. I just kind of named them Death and the Gang because of Blue Death Fang Beetles. And this label will just have to be peeled off and updated as I get more of them later on, either by breeding them myself or purchasing them. So we'll just stick that one there. Whoops, I just knocked over the one of the little vials there. Okay, let's see who's going to be next. Let's do the bigger guys as they're probably a little cramped in there. This one is the Grammostola pulchripes, which actually, I believe he's ready for a juvenile enclosure, which I have a longer enclosure that I might end up switching to. But for now, this 4x4 should be good. I do have to install a locking mechanism on this, so this will likely be 2 rehousings that this one has to go through, as my latches have not came yet. And I ran out when I was putting them on all the 3x3s for the rest of them. Because I did not have enough sling enclosures from Tarantula cribs for these. And as beautiful as those enclosures are, they are fairly expensive. And I actually have the knowledge and know-how to be able to make them myself. I just need to get myself a laser cutter in order to do that. So I will eventually be making myself similar enclosures eventually, rather than reusing these boxes. Which actually, before we put this guy in here, I'm gonna go ahead and add the substrate first, which we're not gonna moisten as much because they are an arid species, as far as I am aware, or more on the arid side, not full tropical, as they are from South Africa, if I'm not mistaken. Actually, it might be Brazil. I have watched so many different videos and done so much research between all of these species prior to getting them that I do need to look back at my notes on each species for exactly where they are from. And actually, I have it on my phone right here. I can tell you guys exactly where this species is from. This species, specifically the Chaco golden knee, Duramistola pulchripes, is actually from, it is a New World species, and it is from Paraguay and Argentina. So that is not Larid, I was wrong. I had it mixed up there. But this one gets a little bit of the cork bark as a hide. I should have probably cut a little more off of these to use. But we'll go ahead and break this and actually start it a burrow, even though they don't burrow too much. Actually, we're going to do a lot more depth in this one as it is a terrestrial species. And they need more length than they need height. This was just not the, I just could not find a significantly longer enclosure without becoming way too tall to really be safe unless you filled the whole thing with substrate. So I started it off here with a 4x4, as at least it's 4 inches wide in all directions. And the extra height could just be used for substrate. And when I find a better fitting container, that is what I will switch to. Go ahead and start. I know these guys don't burrow too much. Gotta do a little more of this substrate here. There we go. Probably should have gotten a bigger piece of the cork bark. I'm gonna keep wanting to call it challerwood, but that'll do there for now. Just like so. And then let me go ahead and adjust the camera for you guys, and then we will go ahead and move them in there. And actually, let me get a water dish for it as well. Oh, and actually the Metallica is over there wandering its enclosure, exploring. I know they are a fairly active species once they get settled in. So I guess I did something right if it's already kind of wandering around and then go right into hiding. I'm going to put that water dish there like that. And just put a little bit of sphagnum moss, as I do with all of my tarantulas, even the ones on the drier side. I put just a little bit of sphagnum moss in a corner, so when they need the higher humidity for molting or anything, even arid species, I put a little bit. I just keep it on the drier side. I don't really mist it. Every once in a while I'll overflow the water dish a tad, and I keep the water dish near the moss. Otherwise everybody gets less humidity and more arid. Unless they're a humid species like a Viculera, which also, by the way, never give them too much humidity. Make sure you have plenty of ventilation. That is how you kill them. There was a misconception for a while in the hobby that they needed a lot of humidity, but they live up in the trees where it's not as high. Okay, so now let me pause the recording here and I'm gonna switch over and zoom it in for you guys. Alrighty guys, so I'm back here. I just zoomed in the camera a bit and readjusted it. Now we're going to go ahead and get the Chaco golden knee here into its enclosure. Actually this one can in fact go over the container here, and it's a terrestrial species, so I'm not too concerned with it climbing the sides or anything. Sides is in to escape from this container and this little tank I'm using to open it up, and not so much it escaping from or climbing its enclosure, but it might need a little more substrate in there. But otherwise I think we're good on level of substrate. Let's go ahead and actually just do this. He's down here at the bottom. And switch back to these other tongs. Don't want to use the sharp ones near it. This over a bit so you guys can see it a little better. I'm gonna pull out this moss little by little. Don't want to get too close to it. We're just gonna kind of coax it from the front here. He's turning around. And don't want it to jump or anything and fall at all, so we're just gonna move it a little closer here. Oh, somebody changed their mind on their direction. Go ahead, little guy. These guys are an extremely docile species, also a new world. Probably should put gloves on for that, or decaying hairs of any kind, or decaying setae is the actual official term. It's a bit of a pain to deal with, and I would imagine a little more so when they're as tiny as this guy is here. Which, if my camera would stop going into sleep mode so I could see the preview, that would be fantastic. But there's the Chaco golden knee. So that looks like either a little threat pose or just kind of walking. I believe these guys just kind of wander a little silly like. So we will place him above the Goody for right this second. While I get the rest of these. Oh, actually, before we do that, we have a label to put on there, don't we? And I believe I named him Cocoa Puff, or him or her Cocoa Puff, because I didn't really like the name, which I don't remember it off the top of my head now, of the Cocoa Puff bird from. He's climbing a lot. I might need to put a lot more substrate in there right this minute. As for a terrestrial species, he's climbing a bit, and I am not comfortable with how high he is climbing currently. There's a little more space. I don't know if you guys can see that there. There it is. That is the Chaco golden knee here. He's about 1.5 inches, but he's getting a little high up on that 4x4 enclosure than what I am comfortable with. So I'm actually going to add more substrate to that before he falls. And injures himself like he just did there, which wasn't a high fall, but still don't want him getting hurt. So we are going to put more substrate in there. Which this lid is also a lot more tight fitting than I thought it was. He's climbing it again. Oh, hello, little guy. Alright, let's get you back in there. Go ahead, careful. Okay. Let's camera back down for you guys here. And these guys are a new world, so even if he were to bite me right now, I'm not too concerned. That is, even if the Sling's fangs can break skin much, which I'm sure they can. But, oh, right through the water dish. Okay, that's still a little high on that side, but I'm not too concerned with it. Safety right there. I'm gonna have to probably add more substrate or a piece of cork bark, something there, just in case. I believe this is one of the species that just are prone to climb the enclosure when they are being rehoused. He should settle down and stop trying to do it. And I'm pretty sure I just put a lot of soil over the moss. I'm gonna have to put more in there. But I'm feel safer with how that soil is right now. Kind of on the one side, it looks a little light. I'm gonna actually pause this recording, guys, and fix that enclosure, and then I will be right back. Alrighty, guys, I'm back. Took me just a minute to do it. I'm much happier with the less space that he's got there towards that top. So it was a little deeper than I wanted to do it. I'm gonna have to get some longer, some smaller, longer enclosures, and do a couple more rehousings, I guess, for a few of these. But I feel more comfortable with that less height that he's got there, although he's proven me wrong a little bit. Right now that still looks a little high, but I think once I put him down and let him settle in, he shouldn't climb, and that should be fine until I can get my hands on the other enclosures. Unfortunately, the only other shallower enclosure I have that is longer are the ones that my scorpions are currently in, so I can't exactly house a tarantula in there temporarily. Although the scorpions cannot climb at all, so it might be safer just to clean that out and put them in there now and move the scorpion into a deli cup for the time being, which I may end up doing. So now that we've done that, let's go ahead and actually, I'm going to pause this video and replace the battery in my camera first, before it cuts off while I'm recording, and then we'll move on to the next. Alrighty, guys, now that we've rehoused the Chaco Golden Knee, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next one, which is really going to depend on the size they are before I move them, as I did not bring any of the larger enclosures back down here with me. This one I believe is on the smaller side. It should have one of these. I know we're using one of these as well for, you know what, we're going to go ahead and do the other potential escapees is what we're going to do first, as they were obviously a little more of a flight risk and going to be looking to get out faster than the rest. We're going to do the two blue dwarf baboons first, as they are both going in the same enclosure, because they are a communal species. And we're going to be using the smaller 3x3 tarantula cribs for them, as they're very tiny, and I feel more comfortable with how secure this one would be versus something else, as they are also an older world species and very fast. I put the rest of the soil over here from when I was fixing the Chaco Golden Knee. Go ahead and stick that in here. I believe they are semi-arboreal, similar to the green bottle blue tarantulas. For those of you that are familiar with those, where they are a terrestrial, but they'll web up and everything. So we're gonna do that, and just to help with holding a burrow and adding some anchor point, I'm going to put some small chunks of a small chunk of the cork bark in there to help. Although this substrate holds it fairly well to begin with here. Don't know how shallow we should really make it for them, or how deep. Being semi-arboreal, I think that should be fine in terms of depth and everything. That should be sufficient substrate, as they do burrow and are primarily terrestrial. I think we're good there with that, for the amount of substrate. But let's see, we're gonna need a little bit of moss in there for sure. Put a fake plant leaf in there for them, to use like an anchor point and a hide, I guess. These don't really have longer stems. So that one will have to go like that. And let's see, we have that like that for them. We're not gonna put any live moss in there. Their humidity requirements are not as high as some of the others. We'll do some of the sphagnum moss, and also I'm not doing this full bioactive yet. When I do a bioactive, we'll worry about live plants, but this is going to last a good while in this, and no plant is really going to survive in the tiny 3x3. So we can't really do anything about that yet. So let me get my tongs ready. Just put over here. Somewhere's over here are my sharper ones, which I will be needing as well. These guys, I'm not going to be able to fit a water dish in here, although I will probably be 3D printing a smaller water dish that I designed to fit in these smaller 3x3 enclosures comfortably and hold just enough water to help with regulating humidity and give them something to drink from besides when I mist their webs. Although these guys are big webbers, so that should take care of their humidity requirement in their water when I mist their webs, so I'm not too concerned about that. This one is right there. So as fast as they are, not too concerned with that yet. Make sure you guys can see this here. That's all just bits of that moss in there right now. Of course, while I'm recording, the cats are having a field day running around. He's still there. Yeah, my little guy. Come on. Very tiny little guy here. Come on. I don't want to try to tilt this to knock him out or try to coax him, because if I do that, he's sure to go up the tongs and definitely gonna go running along the edge of it. And this guy is very tiny. Come on. There you go. And he's in there. Note to self, do not rest my watch on the edge of the container. It's a good way to spook the tarantula. Now he's in there, very tiny. I don't know if you guys are gonna be able to see him. I'm gonna actually pause the recording one more time and zoom in for you guys for this next one. Don't think these guys would bite, let alone do a lot of damage. But trying to get in there. I'm trying to make sure that 2 of them are in there. And knock them into the stuff down here around the bedding while I was trying to get them in there. Let me get the sprayer real quick. And hit the lamp. Give them a little bit of a mist here. That was probably a little much. But I just want to put a dripple in one of the corners here, and actually should probably do that around where the mist is. I mean, where the moss is. Mist, moss, too many M's. Too many M words. Let's check on where the other one is and know for a fact the one is there. I think they went and burrowed. Oh, one's right here. I don't see number 2. He just climbed right out. He was in there. Sneaky little bastard. Come on. Nope, back in, thank you. No, and he went right back out. Nope, back in. Back in. And he's under the enclosure. Okay, this guy's gonna be a fun catch. I'll be right back, guys, once I get him back in there. Alright guys, that wasn't too bad. He just climbed underneath it, inside of the tank here, and I just had to lift it up slightly and scooch him with the tongs until he decided he was gonna climb up. But the two of them, which I have named Blue and Berry, as they are a dwarf species and can no longer be in the same enclosure. Yep, you're up. They are fast. Both of them were just here on the side of the thing. I was trying to show them to you guys, and they both bolted already. How about that for fast? Pretty much teleported. Looked away for 2 seconds. When people say they teleport, they were not kidding. Holy fuck. I don't even see them. They either went right into burrowing, or one of them's right here by the moss, I think. I don't know, but they can't escape out of this. This is escape proof, so they can teleport all they want inside of the enclosure. Okay. Now we're on to the next one. The next one, let's see, the next one, let's do the next one. That's going to be a feisty one. Watch it be like the calmest out of all of them. The blue cobalt. And actually, I take that back. Before we do that, I'm going to put the label on the other guys here. Not that I could mistake the only enclosure or two of them that are probably not going to be showing themselves much. So it'll look empty as can be. So even if I didn't put the label on right away, I know what I got and I know who is in what. But still, just to be safe, I'm going to put this on here on the side of the enclosure here. And despite having a machine to make better labels than this, I'm just using these Avery template labels because it's a little too much work for labels that I know I'm going to be taking off eventually. I'll use the nicer ones on their adult enclosures. Okay, so this next guy here is also getting the 3x3, unless he surprises me and is somehow larger in this smaller vial, but I don't think he is. We got the soil here that we're gonna need, so we're gonna fill this up, and the cobalt blues need moisture, so I will be spraying this one down a significant amount. I'm probably putting in a little bit of I'm gonna spray this before I add a little more in there. A significant amount of probably going to be adding in a significant amount of moss on the surface here, which we want this to drain a bit down. That's the only thing about this substrate. It takes it a minute to settle out a bit. It goes faster if you mix it. Force then it sticks to your hands, but it holds burrows and everything very well. Make sure the substrate is damp thoroughly there. Then we'll put a little bit more of the dry substrate on top. And that substrate is going to stick to the side of the enclosure, but it'll come off eventually. There's some misting. I do need to fill one of these containers, spray bottles, with some distilled water, because I have been using tap water that's treated for these guys, because that's what I use for the geckos and everything. And unfortunately, the downside to doing that is it ends up getting the acrylic all cloudy with the deposits from the water as it evaporates. Okay, so we got him in here like so. We do want to put a little bit of cork bark. I don't know about the plant. It's a fossorial species. Probably don't need it up on top like that. not too concerned. I'll put a little bit of cork bark just to help start a little bit of a burrow. In there for him, or give him something to kind of burrow under. And I'll start the burrow like so. He's a little small, so I don't want to put a super big one. I'm just gonna stick my finger there like so. Obviously he's not in here yet, or I would not be sticking my finger in the enclosure like that. So that starts his tunnel for him, and we're gonna go ahead and put in a little bit of that moss before we put him in. And he'll actually get just a little bit of this sphagnum moss, and I'm actually, to help with humidity, I'm going to put a little bit of the live moss as well, which is why I brought down as much of it as I did from my little container I have it growing in. Because I didn't know how much I was going to need for each of these enclosures. We'll put just a little bit here. It gives them just a little bit of foliage and helps with the humidity for him/her. I keep calling them a him or a her, but nobody knows what they are yet. They're too small. Okay, let's get good old cobalt blue, who I named, of course, what else but kobold, as that is what cobalt comes from, the name cobalt, as in the tiny little gremlin looking guys. And I believe that's also German. These are another old world that are fast. He's thankfully not right there on the surface. Yeah, he's right there. Already in a threat pose, I think. I can't really tell. Don't know if you guys can see him right there. He's like, I don't even think he's in the third pose. He's actually facing the opposite direction. Trying to burrow deeper. Yep, trying to burrow deeper. So I'm not really no threat pose of any kind yet from the cobalt blue. Like I said, watch me be the calmest out of everybody. The one that is notorious for not being the calmest. Come on. Let me get around you so I can kind of pull out some more of your moss that you're holding on to and try to get you out with that. There you go. Alright. He is in. He's in a curl, but I think it's just from transit. He is in a little bit of a death curl. I think it's more of a spook than anything else, though I don't think he's actually like got anything to worry about there. We'll see. He should open himself up and kind of unfurl, if you will, in a little bit here. And burrow himself down. Which, I don't know if you guys can see him there. You can definitely see the reflection, unless that's just me seeing it on the preview here on the back of my camera. But that's him right there in the middle. Very tiny, currently curled up. A little gray fuzzy ball. Under the right lighting, they do look blue. I don't know if he would look it yet. He'll unfurl himself, I guess, and go about there. His tarantula things once he settles in. Let me get his label and stick it on here. The only downside to documenting this for you guys doing the whole recording is it takes way longer to do all these rehouses than it would have taken me had I not been recording. Way longer. I could have had this done in probably about 20 minutes, to be completely honest with you guys. Alright, let's go ahead and move on to the next one. We still have another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to go. This is the gold digger. We'll save him for last. He's going to be fairly easy to move. And the enclosure he goes in will probably be almost like borderline his lifetime enclosure. As they do not get all that big. Metallica, very humidity dependent, so we're going to go ahead and move the Metallica first. A lot of these I probably should have moved her before I even did the Gramasola Pulp Gripes or Choco Golden Knee, but due to its size I went ahead and moved it first. Let's go ahead and actually pull out the enclosure before I do that. I wanted to see how big she is before I do that, but she's right there. She's gonna need the larger enclosure. We're gonna go ahead and do the vial for her. I don't feel that small tarantula crib at the 2x2 is gonna really be big enough for her. Which this one has significant air holes. I drilled all around the sides using a hot needle. Pull that substrate there like so. We could put a little more in there for her. Actually pour a little bit back out. And I have a different type of leaf already cut over here. What did I do with it? There it is. It is right here. This one actually came in the vial with the, one of the ones that came in the vial with my Mexican red rum here. That I also got from FearNotTarantulas. That was a freebie with my green bottle blue. And of course, as with Aviculaриas, only downside, of course, with this small vial, I can't put a water dish in there. So I'm gonna have to miss the sides, but putting this moss in here will help. This gives a little bit of anchoring and hiding spot there. But this moss will help hold the humidity at the right level. I'm not too sure how well the live moss is going to do, but the live moss does better with just the right amount of humidity, which around the humidity for this moss should be around the same humidity for the Avicularia to do extremely well. So I'm going to actually use some of this moss in here and move this out first. And put some of this live moss in here for it. So that way I know if the moss starts to turn really brown, then it's too dry. If the moss stays green, but isn't drenched, the humidity should be at the right level for the Avicularia. If the moss is dark green, then it is way too humid and I need to add more ventilation and maybe move the Avicularia. But that should do. Oh, almost knocked down the tripod. Okay, let's get this one open. And it's funny because my green bottle blue is supposed to be one of the best display tarantulas you can get, as most people would agree. However, it's not very active. My Choco Goldeny, on the other hand, seems to be hasn't settled down in its enclosure yet. It's still wandering around. Of course, the metallic, I don't know where it went yet. It's down there in the corner, in the bottom of the drawer here. So we'll get our tongs. Of course, it's an arboreal species, so it'll be quick to climb right out if I don't get the lid ready to. And can't escape from the container I'm using here to kind of catch it. Come on, little guy. Come on. Don't know if you guys are able to see that or not. No, you can't because I moved my hand out of there, and the label's also in the way, but you can see them right down there on the middle, kind of. Oh, there it goes. Unfurling, getting ready to walk out. So we'll just do that. There you go. Now let's not wander out of your enclosure. He got hung up on the moss for a second, and that was enough time to keep him from escaping. As he felt the moss and was like, ooh, that's comfy. I do need to put a little bit of moisture in the soil before I completely close off this enclosure for now and sit it off to the side. But you guys can see him him or her right here. Not very big, doesn't even look like a pink toe of any kind that I know of. That's the neat thing about these guys, is they look almost like the reverse of a baby green bottle blue. Where they're almost fuzzy, they're orange legged with full black body and no orange on the abdomen. Actually, I take that back. There is a little bit of orange on the abdomen. I stand corrected, it does look like a baby green bottle blue almost. However, they're arboreal, and this will turn blue, looking almost like the baby version of the Carabiner versicolors. When they're slings, those guys are bright, pretty blue, and that's almost the same shape that these guys turn when they hit their final molt. So I'm going to go ahead and add water to this, and then we will go from there. Alright guys, and I forgot to mention before I cut that I named this girl Hephaestus because she is the metallic pink toe, and Hephaestus is the, well, I mean, could be a boy, don't know yet, but Hephaestus is the armorer and I believe the weaponsmith as well of the gods, or I think it's Greek mythology. Not Roman. The Romans kind of changed a lot of shit. But I went with her, and you will find out why in a second, as the next one that we are going to be doing is the Formictopus auratus, which is the bronze tarantula, which Hephaestus in Greek mythology had made the Talos, the bronze giant automaton, and had it guarding, I believe it was an island. I don't remember all of the mythology stuff there off the top of my head, but that is why I have named the bronze tarantula Talos, and the Metallica, or Avicularia Metallica, is Hephaestus. Use this other nice tarantula cribs 3x3 for this one, and then the other ones who I'm not as concerned with escaping, as they are mostly terrestrial. First of all, one of them is fully actually I take that back. No, I don't take that back. At its size, it'll do better in the other tarantula cribs. I was going to actually do somebody else in this one instead, but I think the Cuban bronze will do best in this one. and the pumpkin patch, being especially tiny, is either going in the other 2x2 tarantula crib, or into a vial. More than likely a vial. It will have to depend on how big it truly is when I see it. I'm surprised they didn't label the blue dwarf ones as being very tiny on the lid, as those guys were really tiny. So that makes me wonder how truly tiny that this pumpkin patch one is. If they didn't label the pumpkin patch that, but labeled pumpkin patch that, but not the other two, it must be significantly smaller. Okay, this guy's more of a arid species compared to the others. I know that much. So we're gonna go ahead and put just a small bit of the moss here. Notice that arid compared to the others. This is not really a full arid species, just more so compared to the couple of the other ones that I've already housed here so far. So there's a little bit of damp moss in the one corner, and if it prefers it, we'll keep everything a little more damp. If not, it'll avoid that corner more, and I won't spend all this time in it, and I will reduce the moisture. That is the best way to tell if they are moisture dependent or not. They'll either tend to go as close to it as possible, or they won't. If they avoid it and they don't go very close to it, then they don't need it. This thing, I feel like this is going to be way too big for it, and of a water dish, and it's not going to have a lot of room in here. As small as it is, I may need to actually get, a lot of these I'm going to be moving into longer enclosures, I think. The only ones I think that are going to for sure stay in a, this is way too big for a piece of corkboard. That was the vial with the springtails in it that I just knocked over. I think the only ones that are going to for sure stay in one of these 3x3s is going to be the probably the cobalt blue, because of its size right now, and it's a cereal species, so it's got plenty of room to dig, and it's not going to need too much more space yet. Whereas the blue and berry gaboon blue dwarf or Gabon blue dwarf baboon tarantulas are going to need. By the time they outgrow that one, they're going to need a larger enclosure, and they only get 2 inches. So they will be in that one for a significant amount of time and are tiny right now. But the other two, or rather all the rest of these are probably going to get slightly larger enclosures fairly soon after I move them. I just don't want to leave them in these small vials for the few days it's going to take for those other ones to get here. Which this guy's right here on top. And I'm going to be real careful trying to... Whoa. That lid came off way too difficult. I was trying to be too careful with it and ended up almost flinging it. Thought he was right towards the surface, or so it looked. He was right there. He dig himself all the way back down. That's exactly what he did. Up, 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 up. And drop that so I don't drop him and I don't hurt him and I don't accidentally get bit. Although this is, I believe, more of a docile species compared to some of the others. That's okay. So you should be good there. Yeah, he should be fine in this. He's not as big as it looked like he was. He'll probably be in this for a molt or two before I move him. there. That one is for you guys. Right on top of the wood here. Giving a threat pose, or trying to climb. Can't tell which. Trying to climb. As small as he is, I think I need to give him a little more. He just jumped. It doesn't look like he hurt himself, but I think I gotta give him a little more substrate in there. Possibly. I don't know. I don't like the idea of any of the terrestrial species having really much of any room to climb upwards at all. Some of them benefit from it. Some of them should have a little bit. I just don't like the idea of it, as there's a significant risk of them getting hurt, and I would rather not risk it. As is the giant red knee. Who else is more dependent? Let's go ahead and do this one, because that will determine where we put Pumpkin Patch, as tiny as it is. Which this one doesn't even have moss, so I'm guessing it needs a little more of the humidity. Either that, or that's just how freaking tiny it is. You couldn't even put the moss in there, he's going to be able to find it, is my guess. So we're going to go ahead and not open this all the way, but take the tape off. Also, I forgot to put the label on our cobalt blue over there. No, cobalt blue has it. My bad. Telos, the Formictopus auratus. I didn't put the sticker on that enclosure yet. Which my hand has a bunch of dirt on it, and so these labels are probably not going to stay. Good thing I can just print more. Okay, we got our vials here, and we have this crib here. Our both are probably going to be used, so I can just go ahead and put some shirt in both, and we will see based on when we take it out which gets what. And actually, I have a tan jumping spider in one of these enclosures that is almost due to be moved, so I can probably go ahead and move it into a slightly larger enclosure than what it's in right now, which will allow me to, once I clean it out, to have another tarantula crib Sling enclosure like this. But I don't think any of these other guys would do very well in it, as they are all terrestrial and need more length to wander than height. These guys do burrow a bit, so I don't. Again, semi-boreal, so a little bit more space there towards the top for them to web up and everything. But definitely needs the soil to burrow in. I swear, I almost think that my grandma stole with pork gripes thinks it's an arboreal, because it has very, very momentarily touched the bottom, and so far you're wandering around that little bit of height that it has. I mean, almost that entire 4x4 cube is almost filled with substrate, so I can't really give it too much more height without it being right there by the lid when I go to open it, or and not having room to really spread out its legs a bit. So it's just gonna have to hope that that's good enough for it and isn't too shallow. That should be good in depth on that one. My dog is currently trying to sneeze and just like rolling around on the floor. But she does that sometimes. I can hear her in the background. I don't know if you guys can. Okay. Whoops, I just took the stem off of the plant. I was trying to leave the stem on. Because we're going to need to put that in there. One of them slightly longer. Put the fake leaf here in this one. Don't want, actually these leaves need to be trimmed a bit, I think. Not like the tarantula knows it's not a real leaf, or that it It don't even look like a leaf anymore, how, or at least not like the leaf it's supposed to. Alrighty guys, I am back. Sorry about that, my camera had died while we were recording there. And in the process of grabbing the battery off the charger, I did hear back from FearNotTarantulas saying that the 2x2x2 tarantula cribs will actually be just fine for the pumpkin patch. We're gonna go ahead and go back to the pumpkin patch real quick and put this little one in here first, and then we will do our Lassiadora Kluge. Okay, theirs are not too much bigger at the enclosures that they're in. So he's right here. So we'll just move him in there like so. Go ahead. Take the moss back, take that out, and take our lid here and just put our lid on, and there we go. Our pumpkin patch tarantula is actually, I don't know if you guys can see it here, right there on the leaf. It'll focus there. Very tiny. So that is what she'll be in for now, or he or she. I will have to figure out, probably get a couple more of those 2x2 enclosures from the tarantula cribs, as I do want to move out of the 30 dirham vial and into one of those, the gold digger. And I'm definitely gonna get a couple wider enclosures for the a couple wider, longer enclosures rather for the white knee and the giant red knee. The Kluge as well is going to need one, but for now the Kluge is going to be going in a 30 dirham vial along with the rest, just so they aren't in these tiny vials while I pick those up, because I'm either gonna have to go to the store and see what I can find, or go to the store and see what I can find, or go on Amazon and pick those up. Let's see, there we go. That's the one I had already cut for in here, which is going to need to be a little bit smaller. There we go. And pull off that excess on the leaf, and voila. That is our vial. I don't know if you guys can really see it there. That is my stomach because I'm hungry. I don't know if you guys can hear that. I'm gonna go ahead and get our Kluge, who is right here beside me. Have a lid ready for that guy. See where he's at. Up, tiny as can be, and also right there. Yeah, I'm gonna need some 2x2x2 sling enclosures. We jumped right in there. Perfect. That guy didn't give two hoots about me. He went right the fuck into the enclosure. See if I can't show them to you guys or not. Really went right into the moss, looks like. Yep, there he is. See if you guys can. He's not gonna let you guys see him. Maybe he will. He changed his mind. He wants to be photogenic. It's like right there on the far right. If you guys can really see that, it looks a little blurry on my my preview thing on the camera here. But I don't know if that's just my eyesight being very crappy to begin with. But he is tiny. And that is the scarlet bird eater. A fairly rare species in the hobby. What do I do with the lid? It's right here. Go ahead and put that on there. And that will be its enclosure for the time being. I believe I will be moving it into something a little more fitting for it in a little bit. I'm fairly certain it's a terrestrial species, as with most bird eaters. So I will be moving that into a more terrestrial habitat once I have one on hand. For now, we're going to go ahead and move these guys here. And still contemplating I could think of something else a little more fitting for them other than these 30-gram vials. Although it shouldn't be more than maybe 24 hours that they'll be in them until I can get my hands on the other containers to use. But so be it. We'll have to use these for now. I think they should be fine though. Definitely going to be putting them in a much larger, or not much larger, rather much longer, shorter, or longer, what would be the word, not nearly as tall enclosure for them as they are terrestrial species. With these 30-gram or 50-gram vials are kind of wasted on them, especially. A, they need more room to move around, and B, also they can't have all that extra height, or they can potentially hurt themselves being a terrestrial species. So kind of just taking up all the height of the 50-gram vial with soil. But that's what we got to do for the time being. I'm just gonna fill each of these with substrate. And that reminds me, I gotta label those vials. Good thing I know who was who. 30-gram vials, the gold digger, the 2x2 is the pumpkin patch, and this other one right here that is unlabeled right now. I'm gonna put the label on it. That one is my Klugi, which is named Vecna. I named it after Vecna from Stranger Things because I was running out of name ideas, and that one kind of came into mind. Actually, I met Grace Van Dyne, who plays Gracie in Stranger Things, at GalaxyCon Raleigh, and I was looking through Twitter and she posted something, and that's what kind of gave me the idea of Vecna for the tarantula. I was trying to think of names because I was running out of interesting names. For example, most of these guys have Greek mythology related names. For example, I was gonna name one like the Mexican flame knee Quetzalcoatl, but that would not really work on the flame knee. It doesn't resemble anything of the sort, considering that is a giant bird. If I ever got a scarlet macaw or something, there's a chance I would name it that. Not that anybody else around me would want to call the bird that, and then it would have a different nickname that it would respond to, as my conure currently does. Originally I was going to name her Athena and her Artemis, and her name is currently Mango, because my mother refused to call her anything else, and she's around her enough that it's stuck, and so that's what I kind of reluctantly changed her name to. Put a little more moss in there like that. Of course, both of these are more arid species, but actually the white knee, it's not as much so. The smithy is Brachypelma smithy, but I'm going to put a little moss in here, as these guys are slings and they do like a little more while they're slings. It's nice and slow, directly over the vial. Oh, holy shit, this one's tiny. They should have put a tiny label on all of these. Holy crap. These are slings, like teeny tiny. Come on, little one. Like when you see online, like, oh, like an inch sling or inch and a half slings, it's not necessarily what you think of. Yes, that's a measurement, but when you're like me and you're not too good with math, or you and math don't get along, your brain also doesn't want to cooperate when it comes to visualizing how big something is going to be. And I tried to use my 3D modeling software to actually put a STL file of a almost accurate 3D model of a tarantula and tried to size that to what they would be, and compared it to the size of the enclosure I was going to use, and used that as an estimate for these. And most of those I estimated it at about 1/2 inch or 3/4 of an inch. Yeah, I should have gone smaller. Definitely should have gone smaller. And this guy actually looks like he's a lot bigger. This guy is definitely a lot bigger, so he's probably gonna go into a 4x4 fairly quickly if I have the space, or can't find enough 3x3s in time, rather, because I should be able to find food in it just fine. That's my only concern, is air hole size, and if you up, I just kind of took them out of the vial. Whoopsie, good thing I didn't drop you. Come on. Can we climb up on the tongs for me here? There we go. Oh, see, now he's on the tongs, so you don't want to get off of the tongs. Come on. Get in there, you. Nope. Yeah, that is actually a very nice size smithy sling. Not as tiny as all the other guys are, but not too big either. Actually, let's see if you guys can see him there. There we go. He's right there, if you guys can see him. Right here along the side here. Right. Use these tongs, so he's gonna try to climb right back out, I guarantee it, but let's see. Just like right about there. If you no, right here, if you guys can see him. Up, like I said, he's gonna climb right back out. Nope, get in there. Thank you. And I'm gonna put this lid on. Alrighty guys, and with that, I hope you guys enjoyed my little less organized than I was planning it to be unboxing review and rehousing of my new tarantulas from FearNotTarantulas, as well as the blue fang death beetle set. Unfortunately, my camera didn't want to cooperate when I was rehousing those ones. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.